2020.
This program is brought to you by Ignite TV. Now you're in command. Visit Rogers.com for more details.
Hello, and welcome to Voices of Grey. I'm Petal Furness. I'm the manager here at Grey Roots Museum and Archives, and we're filming now inside of our Reproduction 1920 schoolhouse. I want to have a shout out to Mark Perry, who's filming this episode, and also he's the manager of Rogers TV. We want to thank them for following local cultural events and covering this. I'd also like to thank Katrina Paradin. She is our community communications person, doing a lot with the community, and she's helping out with this series as well. And today it's my privilege to have a conversation with Brian Milne.
Thank you,
So
Petal.
Brian, thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm thrilled to be here.
Good. Well, we have a long history. Well, I guess not that long.
No.
I've been in Grey County and I figured out 20 years.
Really?
But ever since I started working with the museum, so it's been 15 years, you've always been around.
So you've been here for 15 years at the museum?
Yes.
Wow.
Isn't that incredible?
I didn't think the county would hire somebody that was only 5 years old.
You're so cute. So I was 10 years working with exhibits and programs and marketing, and then 5 years this October as manager.
Well,
and it's been such a privilege.
You do a great job here.
Well, I just love people, and I love people like you that actually volunteer to be elected to help run the county. And when you're in a position where you know you're going to be criticized, no matter what you do, no one is always happy all the time, and yet you voluntarily.
Well, if everybody's happy, you're not doing your job right.
Yeah, oh, that's a good quote.
I think,
remember
as a
that.
politician, because you got to be pushing the limits somewhere to move things along, because it's easy to say, well, we'll just leave it the same way. That's the way it's always been, so we'll just leave it. No, that's not good enough. We got to keep pushing, keep moving things ahead. So, yeah, you're always going to be ruffling feathers somewhere.
Okay.
And unfortunately, maybe I'm better at that than some.
That's how things happen.
I guess.
Before we get into more of your current situation and your local recent history, we've talked to a lot of folks this season, as well as the first season, and a lot of people aren't from Grey County. Some of them, they've moved into the area like I have, but you have long, deep roots.
Born and bred here, yeah.
Okay, so tell us a little bit about your story.
The original township is Egremont. It's an amalgamated township in Southgate now, and the little village of Dromore, which is geographically, it's almost smack dab in the middle of Mount Forest, Durham, Flesherton, and Dundalk. It's almost the exact same distance to those four communities from Dromore. And
So easy to find on the map.
I guess so, yeah.
Which I will do.
I often say it's not quite the center of the universe, but we can see it from there.
Oh.
But yeah, my family's history is typical of thousands of other people that have emigrated to this country and to this area. Scotland and Ireland are my ancestors on both sides of the family. Although there's a little bit of English crept in there on my mother's side, because they were high Anglicans when they showed up here. And so over the years they emigrated to southern Ontario or Upper Canada at that time. My grandmother used to say that her ancestors originally moved into the area just north of Toronto, up around Bolton and up in there. And there's some really good land and farmland in there, and she used to wonder what on earth ever took them to keep going up into the southern Grey County. But she wondered if it was the stones and the cedar trees that reminded them of home in Scotland. So.
It could be.
But anyway, in any case, we're there. My son, I think, will be 5 generations on the farm. He intends to farm, which I'm intensely proud of.
We're going to ask you that question.
Yeah. So in that respect, my family is very typical of a lot of immigrants to this country. And indeed, most of us are immigrants at one point or another. So, yeah.
What a legacy that is, to have that many generations farming.
Well, it is. There's not that many anymore that have that length of time.
No, that's true.
But farming is changing like every other industry in the country. So.
Because I'm originally from BC, and then I lived for almost a decade in Alberta in farmland, and then when I moved here, I think one of the things that really made me think about how hard it would have been for the newcomers is when I see all of those fences made out of rocks.
Oh, yeah.
And just all the rocks that would have to be moved. And when I first started working at Grey Roots, the centerpiece of the Grey County Gallery was, of course, pioneers with this rock picker with this huge rock. And it's just so much work.
Well, it is. I remember when I was in university, I took agriculture down at the University of Guelph. I'm a proud Aggie. And one of my good friends that I met down there was from tobacco country, down around Tillsonburg, south of Tillsonburg. And so the summer we graduated, I had never worked in tobacco, but I'd had a couple cousins that had worked, and I thought, well, their stories are pretty cool. I'm going to try this out. So I back down there for that summer to work with him, and he also grew corn and soybeans. So I was out, he sent me out to cultivate or disc or something one day, and he said to me, if you come across a stone, stop and pick it up and put it in the cab. And I'm thinking, I'm from Grey County. I'm thinking, are you kidding me? I'll have the cab full in about 10 minutes.
Right.
No, I cultivated the entire day and I never saw a single stone.
Oh, it was heaven.
I couldn't believe it. His dad asked me to dig a few post holes one day, and it was sand straight to the bottom. He couldn't believe how fast they dug these post holes.
Right.
But at home, I'd have been all day digging one post hole because of the stones and the hard clay. But anyway, it drove home the differences in the various areas of the province.
Mm-hmm. So you were married.
Yep.
Where did you meet her?
I met.
I love these stories.
Debbie's from Toronto, Etobicoke.
Oh, she's from the city.
She's a city girl.
How did you meet a city girl?
Well, we got 2 or 3 hours. This is a family show, so I'll edit it a little bit. But I worked in Toronto after I finished. I spent the summer on the tobacco farm, like I said, and I always wanted to drive truck. I'm a big fan of big machinery, big trucks, big tractors, so I always wanted to drive truck. So I got my license and I went to Toronto. And I wasn't in Toronto too long, and there was a buddy of mine. There was quite a bunch of Grey County people that moved to Toronto to work or school or whatever. So anyway, a buddy of mine called and he says, hey, there's a bunch of us, we're getting together, we're going to rent a house. You want to join us? And I said, yeah, absolutely, because I'd been staying with my aunt, which was very nice. But anyway, I decided to move in with these guys. And Deb lived in the house, I think it was 2 houses down. And there was a big hydro park at the other end of the street. And every day after work, Deb would come home. She was in school at that time. She'd take her dog on the leash and take it down and walk. So all us guys would line up at the front window of the house, and we'd look out and watch Deb go by, and then watch her come back home. We'd all wave, and she all thought we were weird. And so anyway, long story short, I asked her out, and I took her to a Leafs game because I'm a big Toronto Maple Leafs fan. So we went to the hockey game, and anyway, I asked her to marry me sometime later, and she foolishly agreed, and I brought her to Grey County. And she's never regretted it. Oh,
so how did she adapt from being a city girl to living on a big farm?
Well, it was a transition, that's for sure. And I was working away at the time. I was working, I drove a tour bus, again, big machinery. I drove a tour bus all over North America for a number of years. And I remember one night she called, we had just got a new puppy dog, and she called me, or I called her, I guess, and she said, the dog got away, and he's down in the swamp. And he's barking and barking, and I can't get him. And she was crying, and she was a little overwhelmed with what was going on. And I made a decision then that, no, this is crazy. I can't.
Gotta be home.
I got to be home. So, and I always did want to farm full time. So I thought, well, I've done this a lot. I did it for, I think, 4 or 5 years I drove. And really enjoyed it. I saw a lot of North America, saw a lot of really cool people and places. And but it's a young man's game. And so I decided to stay home and farm, and yeah, she quite likes being in Grey County.
Oh, that's so wonderful.
Yeah, we have 3 children. Mm-hmm. My oldest daughter is Sarah, and she's in Waterloo. She works in administration in the healthcare world. And my middle daughter is Emily. She's a nurse out in Vancouver, actually, in your hometown,
yes.
or your home province.
Great.
And she's been out there a number of years. And our youngest is Alexander. He's going to farm, and he's a helicopter pilot as well. He crop dusts. And he's actually up north spraying clear cuts now for tree plantings. So it's kind of a seasonal thing. And so that's our family. My mom and dad they're still on the farm beside me. Dad will be 85 in a number of weeks, and he's still very active in the farm. He restores his old tractors as well. He's kind of got me hooked on that now. I have a couple of my own, and yeah, it's nice.
That's so wonderful. Have your parents right next door?
Oh, it's awesome.
That's
it's
great.
Awesome. You take it for granted, really. You shouldn't. I shouldn't. But you take it for granted that they're always going to be there. They won't always be there, of course. None of us will.
No, that's true. We're all meant to expire.
It's great while they're there.
So, Brian, you're farming, you've got a beautiful wife, you've got lovely children. What made you decide to help steer where everything was going, to help make decisions that affected more than just your family, but affected your neighbors and your fellow Grey Countyites?
Our family, both sides, my mom's and my dad's families, have a long history of community service, and particularly in politics of one sort or another. My dad's brother, my uncle, was a member of Parliament in Brampton, or in Toronto, or Ottawa rather. They live in Brampton.
What was his name?
Ross Milne.
Ross Milne. Okay.
Ross, and his wife Lorna was a senator in the Senate of Canada for a number of years. They're both retired now. My great uncle on my mother's side was Farquhar Oliver. He was in the provincial legislature for, I think, close to 40 years.
Wow.
He was leader of the Liberal Party for a number of years. He actually started with Agnes MacPhail. They go back that far.
Yes, I remember this story now.
My aunt Lorna, who is a great genealogist, she claims that there's a family connection with us, the Milnes, and Agnes MacPhail. And I think, if I get this right, I am a second cousin, twice removed, which means to me that I'm not related. Okay. But she says there's a relation there. So anyway, my grandparents and aunts and uncles, there's a lot of history with politics. And also my father's an elder in our local church. My mother was on the school board for a number of years. It's community service. I mean, it's been drilled into us, our family, that you get involved, you participate, because if you don't, you're satisfied with the way things are. And as I said earlier, you gotta get involved. You gotta raise your voice. You gotta contribute. So I'm happy to continue on that legacy of being involved. And it has been extremely rewarding to suggest that I have contributed anything approaching what I have got out of it is ridiculous, because I've got far more out of it than I've ever contributed. So it has enriched my life and my family immensely. And if I've made any impact positive, that's just a bonus in my mind.
Thank you, Brian. We'll return after this short break and learn more about Brian.
To the rafters in the Edmonton Arena. Everyone is feeling the pressure on the Grabs as they await the American champs. Here's the Cleveland favorite Knits now, and boy, do they look impressive.
Look at their uniforms. I bet you could sure run in smart shirts like those.
Not that. Look, world champs, my eye.
Grads, we don't play for glory. We play the game for the game's sake. So tonight, you're going to earn that title by playing your game. Teamwork, passing. Let's show them what it means to play the Grads.
were champions for 25 years. The record of 502 wins and only 20 losses is unmatched in all of sport.
You're invited to join us on the couch, first Tuesday of the month for the 5th anniversary season of your loved local LGBTQ talk show.
Welcome back to Voices of Grey. Today's guest is the amazing, handsome, and hardworking Brian Milne. We've just heard a little bit about his farming, about being fifth-generation farmer. We've heard why he's interested in making a difference, why he's elected official. I think you're the first person that I've talked to that has a history of going back generations of people who've been in service.
Involved,
yeah. Making a difference, and why you do it.
Yeah.
I just wanted to share the story about when I first started working here, and I think you were deputy mayor of Southgate at that time, and I'm just getting to learn the area, and you invited me to come to a meeting because you were looking at maybe doing some kind of exhibit exchange.
Yes.
I couldn't remember.
Yep.
And I'm driving south, and this is before GPS and phones, and I'm going, this still can't be Grey County, this still can't be Grey County.
I can see Toronto in the distance. Where am I?
And then I get to where the sign says Southgate, and I turn right, and I'm driving somewhere. I swear I went on a dirt road, but maybe I didn't by now. It's dark out. And I come to this meeting, I'm thinking, this is the perfect place for someone to murder me. But I pull into the parking lot and walk up, and there's this whole room of cheerful people in the light, and I'm thinking, wow, this is a long way away from like the southernmost part. That's when I realized Grey County was so huge.
Yep.
And you were so lovely. It was this merry band of people.
Yeah, Don Lewis would have been the mayor at the time, I'm sure.
That's right.
If I was deputy, so.
Yes,
yeah.
I think that he was. But I'm sorry, Don, I don't remember Don being there. I just don't remember you being there. So that was fun. And ever since then, anything we've done here, any exhibit that we did, any special program, you were always here. You were here when the schoolhouse was being built.
Well, I love history, and I love Canadian history. And, we were just talking about this the other day. I was talking to somebody about elected officials and how it seems to be difficult nowadays to get, in my opinion, good people to enter politics, because it can be a very demoralizing work. It really can be. But we need good people to be involved. And I said, nothing makes a better Canadian than a well-traveled Canadian. People tend to get a little parochial in their views. They focus on this issue in front of us and exclude everything else. And we can't do that. You got to look at the broader picture, and inevitably, if you talk to somebody that has traveled the world, and it doesn't need to be extensively, but anybody that's traveled anywhere in the world, even if it's just across the border into the northern states like Michigan or New York, anywhere like that, it solidifies in their mind that we have a great country here, and we have great people, and we are very, very fortunate to live in the part of the world that we do. And yeah, we have all kinds of troubles. Sure, we have troubles, and everybody has troubles. And as I said earlier, the troubles, those that don't kill you will make you stronger.
Right.
And but I firmly believe that people need to travel more of the world and see and appreciate what we have here. And it just makes you that much more energized to get involved and try to make it that much better.
That's been a recurring theme of folks who are here talking about how blessed we are to be here. Our first season, we interviewed a young man named Mokhlis Hassan, who recently was just working for the Newcomers program, but he escaped from Syria.
Oh.
He was telling us his story and what had happened and about how his brother was taken by the police, but what he didn't say on air was that his brother never came back. And so he was able to escape with another brother, the time they spent in a refugee camp, and then coming to Canada, and all the things we take for granted, like fresh water, the fact that you can go to bed at night and not worry about being murdered in your sleep or someone coming, the fact that there's enough food to eat. And he met his wife, who's from Owen Sound and a good friend of ours and was a student here, in the library, and how important it is to have a library and how important it is to have a museum. And
very much so.
So all the things that sometimes we just take for granted, others are dreaming of.
Yeah, and I fight sometimes with frustration over that, because I think we do have it so good here, and yet some people want to fight about the silliest things and consume so much energy and time. Come on, people, can we not get past this and work on bigger things? And I really enjoy my work at the county, because I find the issues, they're similar, but they're at a different level than at the lower tier. And I mean, I enjoy it all, but I find the work at the county that much more satisfying. One of the things, one of the stories I wanted to touch on was, some of the things that I've learned in my best experiences in politics, and one of the recurring stories that it comes to my mind all the time is it's both one of the hardest times when I was elected and one of the most fruitful was when we introduced a new industry into the Dundalk Industrial Park there, and it was highly controversial, and but they turned out to be a really good tenant in there. But the really positive thing that came out of all that for me was that I learned so much more about First Nations. Anybody that knows their history, and I like to think that I know my history, but I don't know it all, of course. But Dundalk is part of the Haldimand Tract, and that is the agreement that the Crown made with the Six Nations of the Grand River for their loyal service to the Crown during the Revolutionary War. They got 7 miles on either side of the Grand River from its end to its source. And the source of the Grand River is just outside of Dundalk. So Dundalk sits in that Haldimand Tract. And so the people that were so upset with this controversial industry contacted the chief, Bill Montour at the time of Six Nations, and some folks down there, and they come up and proceeded to protest and raise a lot of concerns. And in hindsight, I should have been more appreciative of their concerns. But anyway, the long story short, the chief retired in that time, and the new chief is Ava Hill. And I've got to know Ava very well, and she's a wonderful lady. Very thoughtful, very considerate, very knowledgeable. And I have learned so much from her about that part of our provincial history, our country's history. And I've got a whole new appreciation for the original inhabitants of this country and the struggles and the challenges that they've faced and continue to face. And so I sit on there's a committee at AMO, which is the Association of Municipalities of Ontario. I sit on a committee at AMO that is dealing with Indigenous/municipal relations. And I found that very, very interesting and very helpful to how can we work together? Because we have to, right? It's been a very adversarial relationship over the years, but I think we're making progress. It's slow, but it took a long time to get to where it was, so it'll take a long time to come back. But I'm really enjoying that part of the political world.
Well, I think that's admirable. As an Indigenous woman, but not from here, but from the West Coast.
Well, yeah.
I'm constantly learning. So one of our guests this season is Trish Meekins, who is an Anishinaabe woman with roots in the Cape Croker.
Okay.
And she is a counselor now, and in Owen Sound she has her own business, and I can't think of the name of her business because it's very long. Awesome woman, and we were thinking about the Anishinaabe people that have lived here, and the huge tract of land was Nawash, which is where Cobble and that whole side of the beach from Lone Sound, and looking at some of the trees and what was happening there.
Yeah.
So I do think we have more than a fiduciary responsibility,
Absolutely.
but we just need to find out more. I remember we rented an exhibit from Alberta about Métis people, and we wanted to talk about Métis people in this area. And then I started talking to people from this area, and they said there were no Métis people here. But there were a lot of Métis people here in the area that's now Highboo Park. Used to be at one point called Squaw Point or Frenchtown. So it was really interesting to find that history. So I think now in this age, 2019, 2020, it's up to us to find this information, and it's all there.
Well, sure
and
it is.
Like
Absolutely.
Oprah says, when you know better, you do better.
That's right.
And there's so many things, now that I know better, I can forgive myself for the things I didn't do better before because I just
People don't know.
didn't know.
Yeah, you don't know and you don't appreciate. So.
But certainly you're one of the people that are leading the way, and you're a non-Indigenous person, and
You try. It's as simple as trying to appreciate another person's point of view.
Yes.
No matter, whether they've been here for a week or whether their families have been here for thousands of years. Just try to put yourself in their shoes for a little while and appreciate the challenges and the concerns that they have. Again, I'd be lying if I said I was always that way, because it can be a very trying business, politics. But
because you have so many people to put shoes on.
Well, excuse me. Yeah, but like I said, it's been very rewarding for me. So I'm sure my wife would tell you different, but she's a long-suffering. But she really, all of my family really support what I try to do, and I'm trying to instill this community service ethos in my family as well, my children, and I think for the most part they understand why we do this or why we should do this.
But certainly you're one of the people that are leading the way, and you're a non-Indigenous person, and
You try. It's as simple as trying to appreciate another person's point of view.
Yes.
No matter, whether they've been here for a week or whether their families have been here for thousands of years. Just try to put yourself in their shoes for a little while and appreciate the challenges and the concerns that they have. Again, I'd be lying if I said I was always that way, because it can be a very trying business, politics. But
because you have so many people to put shoes on.
Well, excuse me. Yeah, but like I said, it's been very rewarding for me. So I'm sure my wife would tell you different, but she's a long-suffering. But she really, all of my family really support what I try to do, and I'm trying to instill this community service ethos in my family as well, my children, and I think for the most part they understand.
Grey County is blessed to have you, and thank you so much for coming and talking with us today. And that wraps up our latest episode of Voices of Grey. Thanks for joining us.
Call the Rogers TV viewer response line, email us, or connect with us on social media.
Everybody knows not to drink and drive, but some people still think it's okay to take drugs and drive. Police have the authority, the ability, and the